So you might have heard the news yesterday that Trump retweeted and called for punishing of death for some Democratic Congress lawmakers. And he retweeted other crazy stuff on his Timu Twitter, his Truth Social, that George Washington would have hung these people. Or not only calling for violence, calling for the execution of certain Democratic lawmakers for a video that they made reminding the military that they do not have to take illegal orders because they swore to the Constitution, not to a president, not to a king. And what is wrong with telling the military, hey, remember you swore an oath to the Constitution and you need to not take illegal orders? But for some reason, that seems to be punishable by death now. See if I put it up. This is the Emoluments Clause. The Emoluments Clause is a provision in the U.S. Constitution that prevents federal officials, particularly the president, from accepting gifts or payments from foreign or state governments without congressional consent. There are two parts: the Foreign Emoluments Clause, which bear gifts from foreign states, and the Domestic Emoluments Clause, which prohibits receiving other payments from the U.S. or individual states beyond a fixed salary. Interesting. These clauses are intended to prevent corruption, conflicts of interest, and foreign influence, all which we have seen. Can this be basis for impeachment? I even asked ChatGPT that because I have to give you this information that I'm saying right now. It says yes, some are framing this as impeachable because it may amount to abuse of power, corruption, quid pro quo, play to play. Whether it will lead to impeachment depends on how strong the investigation becomes. We know they're not going to play by the rules, or they're going to hide everything since they control all the branches. But there's already a formal investigation. House Democrats are demanding records. The Department of Justice has been asked to open a probe. Again, it's not going to lead to anything because they're all Trump loyalists. The corruption is, every day that goes by, it gets deeper, it gets more rooted. It's going to be harder to take out, but it will happen. So then I asked, with all the Saudi Arabia, how he's bending the knee to that Saudi prince, right? I wonder why. So I asked him, what about making property deals with foreign leaders and countries? Does the Emoluments Clause not affect this? The Emoluments Clause absolutely does apply with a president, any president, including Trump, make business or property deals with foreign governments or foreign leaders, unless Congress explicitly approves it, which it has not. What the Emoluments Clause says, it prohibits any federal official from accepting, we just said this, a present, a payment, a benefit, or a title from a foreign state or its agents. So how does this apply to the property deals, building a new golf course, how a $2 billion golf course in Saudi Arabia? If the president has businesses like hotels, golf courses, it says, towers, licensing agreements, or development partnerships, the Emoluments Clause kicks in at any time a foreign government or leader financially benefits them. Even if it seems like a normal business deal, it does not matter to the Constitution. Even if it's normal, we're just making a business deal. The Constitution applies to if the president profits. Does the profit originate from a foreign state or a business that they control? If that's true, Congress must approve it, or it's violating the clause. Has Congress approved it? Has Congress gotten together in any of his deals? The answer is no. So he's been violating all these clauses that, again, is grounds for impeachment. And this has been happening all year. Why are more people talking about impeachment then? Because this type of corruption has only been seen one other time on Trump's first term. Other than that, there has never been a corruption to this level, and the capitulation from Republicans in Congress allowing this to go on. So Trump has received, and his organization has received, payments from Saudi Arabia, China, Turkey, Qatar, and the Congress has not approved it. That's when it's in violation of this clause. So bottom line, yes, the Emoluments Clause very much applies to this. Furthermore, I was also wondering, what about him dismantling government agencies? The president doesn't control all that, right? So I asked it, what about allowing all these federal departments and the funding to be terminated without congressional approval? Well, in case you didn't know, Congress has the power of the purse. It's clearly listed. A president cannot terminate federal departments or cut off funding without Congress. Doing so will violate multiple parts of the Constitution and has historically been treated as an abuse of power, something that could be grounds for impeachment. So Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, exclusive authority to create federal agencies. They set their budgets, they allocate the funding, they eliminate or restructure departments. Congress, Article 1 of the Constitution. The president has zero authority to end funding to guess which ones of the following: the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Department of Education, which is a big one that's going on right now because they're trying to dismantle it completely, the IRS, the EPA, the Homeland Security, and more. But those are all the main ones that the president cannot terminate funding for, which he already has. So these departments I just listed cannot be torn apart by the president. Only Congress could do it because they were created by Congress. Congressional agreement. So when we think of Nixon, we think, oh yeah, that guy had to resign because he was so corrupt and he got caught. After President Nixon tried refusing to spend funds he didn't like what's going on now, Congress passed the Impeachment Control Act, which makes it illegal for a president to withhold or cancel funding that Congress has authorized. A president who tries to freeze funding or terminate an agency's budget without congressional sign-off violates this federal statute. And this was Trump's first impeachment, right? When he tried to withhold congressionally already approved aid to Ukraine unless they gave him dirt on Joe Biden. So that's crooked. We know that. So that was the grounds of his first impeachment. All of this shapes out to be abuse of power because you do not have authorization to be doing all this. A president who tries to terminate federal departments or eliminate funding without Congress violates the constitutional separation of powers, breaking federal law, refusing to execute these laws, and of course, impeachment level abuse of power, which is what's going on now. And lastly, I also asked around, or I did my research, and then I asked, after I did some research on it, I asked ChatGPT see if they were anywhere close to what kind of the answer is here. What about a president that ignores judge rulings or Supreme Court rulings? Ignoring federal court or Supreme Court rulings is one of the clearest, most serious constitutional violations a president can commit. It says it's not a gray area, it's black and white. It completely goes against the U.S., the Constitution, which we have seen all year long. And that's why we have seen the Supreme Court has kind of favored Trump, right? Because they know that if they do a ruling that he doesn't like, he's just not going to listen to it. But not going with the Supreme Court ruling, you cannot ignore it if you're the president. It becomes an abuse of power. If you ignore it, it becomes a violation of the rule of law, and that is grounds for impeachment. Eisenhower disagreed with the Brown versus Board of Education, but enforced the ruling by sending federal troops. So stuff has happened before in the past, right? Not, obviously we don't know about it so much unless you really dig into U.S. history. And obviously the internet didn't exist before, which is why everything is magnified tenfold. But here we are with a president that has grounds for impeachment over and over and over. So as we see here, the grounds for impeachment that falls under all of that: obstruction of justice, violation of laws, violating the Supreme Court, federal law, abuse of power, attempting to subvert an election, which he already did, and they have the proof, but Biden and Merrick Garland failed to act on it, and they let the monster come out of its cage again. But ignoring court rulings, as it states here, is one of the most impeachable actions a president can take. They've already done that. They've been doing that. The courts uphold the law, right? The president is not the law. He's not the law of the land. When Trump started this year, they tried to change or add a clause that the president can determine what is lawful and what is not. No, that doesn't work that way. Congress funds the government, not the president's decision, and the president carries out the law. If the president ignores courts, the whole structure it's not the America that was built and we grew up in. And obviously, they don't care about that right now. They want a theocracy. They want a Christian nationalized government. That's a different episode. That's a different podcast. So yeah, I find it interesting that the one who's always crying about that they're attacking him, he's attacking Jimmy Kimmel because he doesn't like the jokes he makes about him, and he plays victim. Every time he's encountered, he's asked a tough question, he plays victim. He just turns it back on the reporter, insults the reporter, says they're fake news, thin-skinned, spineless. I mean, you name it. What president cannot answer a question no matter how hard that question is? We've seen him get up of interviews and walk out, So bottom line, a president cannot ignore federal Supreme Court rulings because doing so is unconstitutional. Mr. Patriot, Mr. Law and Order, it's illegal. It's a breach of his oath of office and textbook example of what is impeachable. So when somebody on the right wing is murdered, like Charlie Kirk was, and you waste no time to accuse the other side and say, oh, they're violent rhetoric, they're violent in nature, without even having caught the suspect or found the motive, then they're just playing that same tune to, I hate to use this word, but to brainwash that side and make them keep thinking, oh, if you're not a Republican, if you're not a Trump supporter, you're the enemy. No, you're not the enemy. I'm not the enemy. You Trump supporter are not the enemy. You're only the enemy if you're anti-American, anti the rule of law. If you believe in criminal behavior, if you believe in going after innocent people because of how they look and mistreating them and having them die tied up in ICE detention camps, then yeah, maybe you could say you are the enemy. But just because you believe on something that is told to you in your social media algorithms, or you're believing the lies coming out of the White House, doesn't automatically make you the enemy. It just makes you a little bit lost. It makes you a little bit confused. It makes you uninformed. Now, those that are informed and are educated and still want to believe the lies, then you're just being willfully ignorant at this point. But we see here with this tweet that Trump and the retweeting that he did saying that their action is punishable by death, it's giving the green light to his base, to his supporters, to go after them, to harass them again. And we see those death threats. For people that are not into politics, I've seen enough interviews, enough people that since Trump's first term went against Trump, they've played the recordings that people have left to their voicemail saying they're going to murder them and their children and they're going to come through their front door. And it's ugly. It's ugly. That's why it's a cult-based mentality when you feel like, oh, you hurt our dear leader, I must attack you now. But the ones that cry foul are the ones doing all the attacking. We see Trump saying punishable by death. Because these congressmen made a video, and they all served at some point, they made a video reminding the military of what they already know. Don't do any illegal orders. Don't commit to any illegal, unlawful orders. And that was so offensive to Trump and his supporters that they called for their death. That's where we are now. So yes, Trump is up for impeachment. He can get impeached with everything that he's done just this year alone. We don't know what the future holds. Just wanted to brief you on impeachment, on the possibilities of impeachment. If the Democrats take over Congress in the 2026 midterms, that is a high possibility. But being impeached does not mean being removed from office. Being impeached, it still has to go through the Senate for a trial. and the Senate has, I forgot how much they need to vote on to actually remove the president from office, and then that Just Dance Vance puppet will take over. That's not going to happen though. He will be impeached, but he won't be removed, if that makes any sense. So, hope you liked this video. Thank you for tuning in. Signing off. Till next time. Peace out.